We do send out, every Friday, we send out our agenda. So that's available every Friday for anyone that's interested. Okay. Next items regarding the dangerous animal ordinance. We've had a couple of changes from our last, from the public hearing. Just address what those final changes were or involved.
There was a, two issues came up that I've made modifications on. One in regarding unattended animals on public property. There was a question about hunting dogs, because the way it was originally written, any animal on public property, and this was really designated and intended for schools, but obviously the language could have been read, and in fact did read, that on any public property, dogs had to be on a leash. So I made an exception for that, for in designated public recreation areas designated for hunting. If you got a hunting dog and you've got a valid license to hunt and a permit to hunt, that this would not require you to have your dog on a leash during hunting season or during hunting activity. So we've modified that a little bit to take care of that issue. And then there was another issue regarding payment of cost. One of the questions was raised, well, what if someone files a complaint and the dog owner is required to keep that dog up and to pay all the costs of the veterinary bills and the board and everything else, and then it's determined, the judge determines that it was not a dangerous animal. It wouldn't be fair to the dog owner to have to bear the cost of that, so I made a provision that says that will be up to the court to determine how those costs are taxed at the end of the case. So the judge could tax it back to the complaining witness if the judge determines that it was not a dangerous animal. So those are the changes that we've made since last time we met.
Any questions or comments in regard to what we have before us? There was one issue that was brought up, and I believe, I don't know that there's a solution, but I did say that I would bring this up to ensure we had any discussion possible. In the event that dogs are running on an individual's property, this doesn't cover that in any sense as far as that animal, as long as they're not attacking their domesticated animals, correct? Correct. And is there anything that you know of that would, any provision that we could include to protect that landowner? Short of, we don't want to make it a leash law, obviously.
Short of a leash law, I don't know anything.
I think that question was raised at one of our public meetings, and Shane McAllister, the amateur lady, said they could live trap an animal. Is that right, Rocky, or do you know?
What was it?
About animal, running game animals. If you catch an animal on your property that belongs to your neighbor or whatever, what recourse do they have to keep that from happening? Can they trap and catch that animal?
Yeah, say as your neighbor, my dog comes over on your property, you can catch it, bring it to a shelter, or, if you catch it like this, you can go on there and get it from you, because that wouldn't have really nothing to do with the rest of the dog.
That's just as it stands now,
That's just
correct?
the way it is.
That's the way it
Yeah, that's just the way it's done. That's what because I have no right to get it, but there's no law that may right to pick it up because there's no leash law.
Right, I think that kind of part of what the question was. Like I said, there's nothing else that can really be done, I don't think, in this.
Not short of a leash law.
Okay.
In section 7, an attack by an animal declared dangerous. In F is what I'm referring to. Any person who knowingly makes a false report.
Yep.
Do you think it would behoove us, any person who take the knowingly out makes a false report, and add that they would be responsible for all expenses incurred during the investigation, the vet bills, etc., so it doesn't come back? Say the courts declare that the animal was not dangerous, and they still put the burden on the animal owner. I just don't, that discussion's been brought up, and I just don't see that that would be
Yeah,
the right thing to
I
do.
don't feel comfortable leaving it open that the accused could still have a fine.
Well, I think with the way it's presented, the judge would still, if they determined it was a false report, the judge could push those costs.
The way I read it, would leave the discretion to the judge, he can.
He could put it on the animal, the owner of the animal, or he could put it on the county, the burden to the county.
Now, there's a provision that says that no event shall be
Page
waived.
4.
Okay.
All right, so on F, you're talking about 7F,
The last line is just add, and responsible for all expenses incurred during the investigation, that is, et cetera, if the animal was found not vicious.
That was my last concern, that was the one I wanted to add.
You know, I just don't want somebody making a report against my dog because they don't like me, and then me having to pay the bills if, you know, my dog's found not vicious.
There's also criminal liability for making a false report, police report.
Very good. It's just a thought.
This would only apply in the case of knowingly making a false.
Well, you know, again, if you're gonna do it, I believe I would strike knowingly. You know, it's just any person who makes a false report.
I don't think you can do that because as far as the criminal sanctions that are set, now if you want to include a provision that says that anyone who makes a false report, then they can be responsible for costs. I don't have a problem with that. We can make that change. But the knowingly has to go in there in order to make it a criminal violation.
How can we remove the possibility of an accused person or owner of an animal getting fined when the animal is found not to be vicious?
Well, they're not going to be fined. If the animal's found not to be a dangerous animal, then they can't be fined.
You're saying you don't want them to be responsible for any vet bills or anything?
Vet bills, housing of the animal, you may house an animal for a month. Who's gonna pay for it if your dog's not vicious?
As the way this stands, that leaves it to the judge to make that determination, correct?
That's the way it's written right now.
I don't think it out.
I kind of think you need to have that flexibility. If we make it too strict, then there is no ability to work with the situation.
Well, I think you by no means should bear the cost, the burden to the individual being accused when his dog's not vicious.
I agree.
I just don't see where they should have to bear that. Because I'm afraid we're gonna run into some of that.
That section 7 only applies to animals who have already been declared dangerous. So if you want to include that exception, we need to put it
Section 2.
section 2, I think that's right. Jay?
Kind of setting up this, Jay.
That's right.
Any other questions or comments? What we can do is have that change added, if there's anything else we can come up with, and then still bring that next Monday. If we're not prepared to vote at that time, we can move that again to another work session. Are there any other comments or questions on this?
So it is, Mr. Porter, is gonna add that.
You'll add that and give that to everybody this week.
To
We'll be
Jay.
ready to vote this week.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. If there's no objection, then we'll place this on the agenda for next week with that addition, and we'll have that this week sometime, correct? Okay. Anything else? Okay. If you have any other changes or questions on it, feel free to contact myself and Mr. Porter, so we can look at whatever whatever other things need to be addressed. Retirement incentives, we had discussed some of the budget meetings about the possibility of retirement incentives, and I would like to ask that we talk about that a little bit more tonight in our budget meeting. But I did want to bring up in general that we can proceed with this in either of the two ways that we had proposed, a rate or a percentage of pay. We do need to determine how we'd like to do that. And what I'd like to do is, after discussing it in the budget hearing this evening, is ask that we put that on the agenda for next Monday. If we're still not prepared to vote, maybe we can have it by the end of the month. But I would like to see that we put something in place by the end of this month so that we can get this operation underway. I'll be glad to, I guess what the best thing to do would be to get those details together, bring that next Monday, have some discussion. If we're prepared to move forward, we can. If not, we can continue that discussion to the next meeting. Any questions or comments at this time? Like I said, we'll discuss that a little bit more in the budget hearing tonight, and then get some details together to look at for next week. Questions? Okay. Next item's a surplus item for the Parks Department. Mr. Barnes?
We held a budget debate last year, April 1st, and we put it up for auction for sale. Nobody put in for it, so we didn't know what we need to do with it. I've had several people ask me to buy parts off of it, and I'm into that, so 52 foot Chris Craft.
What are options for that, Mr. Porter?
Well, it was advertised for auction, so technically, and nobody else bid on, so technically it belongs to the county now. The county can dispose of it as surplus property, or sell it as scrap, or however you want to sell it.
We can declare it as surplus and then break it out and sell it any way, any which way.
Could we have trustees actually disassemble and scrap that out for the county? Chief, can you do that?
Probably.
Charlie Murphy or somebody?
I don't know if they know anything about boats, but I'm sure they can assist.
All we need to do though would be next week declare it surplus, and then we can determine the best way to dispose of it.
Exactly.
And then after that, we can sell the good parts off of it, and then we scrap off it, because it's got a steel hull on it, so getting that size steel hull to a scrap place would be, I don't know what it costs to do that. Especially with wood. Well, that'd be easy to take care of.
So, if there's no objection, we'll place this on the agenda for next Monday to declare surplus. If you could have a description of it, some type of description, like I said, Chris Craft.
I've got to read them.
We've got the description, we ran in the paper.
Okay, if we can have that in our files next week, and then we can declare that surplus. Any other questions or comments?
What was the length of it?
It's about a 52 foot, I think. And it's got a steel hull on it, so I mean, you know, there'll be some money in that, you know, if you can get it at least cut apart, you know, and carry it to the scrap farm, but, you know, I don't know what it costs you to cut it.
How wide? How wide is
Have to measure it. So I'll have all that for you next week. Great man.
Once it's declared surplus, I mean, can't we burn it and then just take the metal? I mean, wouldn't that be the simplest thing to
Burning
do?
right now, we've got sewer projects going on, and I've got campers having stores where people is just storing the campers until we get that sewer part done. So it would have to be after I get those campers out of the way before we could do that.
Have the fire
We can have a
department do a
control
controlled
burn,
burn
control burn.
and be done with it. What's left will be the scrap.
Yeah, we could have a control burn, it's easy.
Yep.
You can have it.
Any other questions or comments? All right, we'll place that on the agenda next Monday. Next item.